This episode's not for the meek. Cartoon Dumpster Dive covers Swamp Thing this week. Hello, Joel.
Hello, Andrew.
So, when I suggested we covered the Swamp Thing animated miniseries, I thought it was going to be like Over the Garden Wall, like 10 short episodes that show a story, and then that was it, like a planned miniseries.
A true miniseries.
Yeah, I think Swamp Thing is called a miniseries, but really it just had 5 episodes and then got canceled because it doesn't wrap up. It doesn't like have a true ending.
Yeah, it's strange. It does almost feel like it was a test. Like it almost felt like they made 4 episodes just to see if people would be interested.
I mean, if you don't understand, it's just a Swamp Thing, baby. But
just a Swamp Thing.
It's just a Swamp Thing, baby. But before we started recording, Joel said to me, he's like, I didn't watch any of these, which is pretty usual. That's not his job. But he was like, he didn't listen to the theme song. So if you also haven't listened to the theme song before, you are all in for a treat before we review it. So hit it. Wait.
You are amazing. You fight everything. Nasty. Swamp Thing.
Okay, you can say whatever you want. I mean, this song is objectively terrible. But whoever thought to parody Wild Thing with Swamp Thing is a genius.
I don't know what I was expecting from this theme song.
Not that though, I bet.
I can guarantee you, in 1,000 years, I never would have thought of this.
Yeah. I was like, damn, that's pretty creative, actually. I mean, the song is terrible. I have to give it about a 2 or a 3. Like, even the comedy aspects of it do not save it too much.
It's bad. It's bad. It's two. Okay, I'm right there with you. I'll give it a 2, and it only gets a 2 just because I find it funny.
Yeah,
that's it. But yeah, it's terrible. I do feel like it's because they mimic Wild Thing, such a catchy song.
Yeah.
I can see myself singing this in the days to come.
Oh yeah, it'll get stuck in your head.
Oh yeah.
So, Joel, how did this show get made? What kind of any kind of fun little story, or was it right up top? Even though this is 5 episodes long, this show is a Reagan show and had a aggressive toy line.
It was. So, you know, really, I want to talk about the production of this pretty quickly, and I kind of want to expand a little bit on, you know, who created actual Swamp Thing. For people who do not realize, Swamp Thing is a DC comic hero.
Yeah, he's kind of. I mean, nowadays he's more like an entity than a hero. He's just like,
Exactly.
It's more like Swamp Thing shows up, but it's not like he's here to save the day. It's just He's kind of
Yeah.
like a cooler Captain Planet. I don't know how to really describe. He works for nature. He doesn't work for humanity. I'd go with
Exactly. But this cartoon based off of that DC superhero or character, we'll just say DC character.
that. Right.
It was very short lived, like Andrew said, lasted 5 episodes. Originally aired on October 31st, 1990. What a great cartoon to air on Halloween, though.
Yeah.
Or,
It's a good one for Halloween. Well, if they had tried a little harder, it would have been good for Halloween.
and then, so they aired the pilot episode on October 31st, 1990, Halloween. And then the 4 additional episodes did not air until April of the following year.
Damn.
And you know what they say, April showers will bring May flowers.
What? I mean, I know people say that, but how does that? Isn't that just the only nature thing you could think of?
It is. He's the green.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he is.
Ain't a lot of green going on in fall and winter. So I think they was just like, hey, let's wait until.
Oh man, I bet
till-
you there were commercials like blooming up next, Swamp Thing or
Oh.
something like that. Totally. Right?
Totally. It was just like you said, it was kind of a cash grab that DC wanted to do for this character. But like so many of our Reagan episodes, Andrew, they turned to our boys over there at Dick Animation to make this cartoon into a reality.
It's like any time people go to Deke Entertainment, it's just always wrong.
Yes.
They cut corners in like ways that are very noticeable, especially for this. This cartoon is hard to look at.
Yeah, it is. And I actually saw a couple of things they kind of they compare the animation and just the overall, I guess, feel of this cartoon to the Toxic Crusader,
Which we
cartoon.
did cover.
We did.
Lloyd Kaufman,
check
come
it
on
out.
our show. I
won't.
messaged you on Instagram. You haven't seen it yet. You probably got other things to do. But come on. Just one time.
Just one.
I just want to say I talked to Lloyd Kaufman. You can even just be like, I'm not coming on your fucking show. I'm like, he responded.
So yeah, and really that's kind of all I have for the production of this. It literally was there's more history behind the creation of this than there is just the actual creation behind Swamp Thing and the history of Swamp Thing than this. To me, if you was to look at the entire history of Swamp Thing, its ups and downs, this, I don't even think they would put this on the timeline of the Swamp Thing history.
Swamp Thing has a very odd history when it comes to media, because this show had an animated series that didn't get popular and get canceled. It had a live action series that this series aired around the same time as. It also didn't get popular. They tried to make it like an Incredible Hulk TV series.
Yeah.
Then, what was it? I think it was 2018. They had another live action Swamp Thing that got canceled immediately. So it's like anytime Swamp Thing is in anything but a comic, it immediately nosedives.
Oh yeah. So I wanted to give a shout out And later on in the episode, we can talk about Swamp Thing in the comics and stuff like that if we want to.
Oh, we are.
Oh, we need to, but really, the creators of Swamp Thing, two guys. There was a writer and an artist behind Swamp Thing. The writer is Lin Wynn, and the artist that created Swamp Thing, the look of Swamp Thing that we have now, was Bunny Wrightson.
Okay.
And this was, Swamp Thing originally aired. I think his first comic he aired in was 1971, Andrew.
Yeah, 1971 on the Calver. 1971 on the cover of House of Secrets 92 is the first appearance of Swamp Thing.
Yeah, so 20 years before they aired the garbage TV miniseries, whatever you want to call it. 20 years before that, they was Swamp Thing made his appearance.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, but that's really the quick and dirty creation of the cartoon. But Andrew, hit us with the voice actors. Because
Okay.
I can't imagine it's anyone we know of.
It's got some familiar people we would know of from doing this show, but not
okay.
of anyone else would be like, oh my God, Harvey Adkin is in this? It wouldn't be like that. So the voice cast of Swamp Thing is Len Carlson is Swamp Thing, Don Frakes is Dr. Arcane, Philip Aiken is Bayou Jack, Elroy Slew is Dr. Demo, Harvey Adkin is Tomahawk, Gordon Maston is Skin Man, Joe Matheson is Weed Killer, Richard Yearwood is JT, Jonathan Potts is Delbert, and Tabitha St. Germain is Abby. And for their other works, we have Len Carlson is Captain Thaddeus Harris in Police Academy, the animated series. Dom Fracas is the Black Knight in Blazing Dragons. Philip Akin is Atuma in Avengers United They Stand, which is a series we will cover one day.
Okay.
Tarzan. Errol Slew is Jack Benton in Tarzan, the television series. The live-action television series, not the Disney one.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah. Harvey Atkin is King Koopa in all of the Deke Entertainment Super Mario animated series.
Hey.
Gordon Maston is the photographer in Gorillas in the Mist, the 1988 movie. Who is the lady who hung out with the gorillas? Because I keep wanting to say Jane Fonda, but that's not it.
Jane from
Jane-
Tarzan.
Yeah. Jane from Tarzan.
Jane Tarzan. He took his first name as her last name when they married.
We have John Matheson as Coach from Tales from the Crypt Keeper. Richard Yearwood is Donkey Kong in the Donkey Kong Country television series. Jonathan Potts is Link in the Legend of Zelda animated series and also Captain N the Game Master.
Interesting.
And finally, Tabitha St. Germain is Rarity in My Little Pony.
Okay.
Joel, this show is exceptionally frustrating to watch for a multiple of reasons. So, as you said earlier, Swamp Thing was from 1971 from the House of Secrets, right?
Yep. Which I think at that time, that was under Vertigo, correct?
It was still DC, but here's the thing. That Swamp Thing is not the Swamp Thing that everybody knows and loves. That Swamp Thing was like a monster or whatever. It was just a thing, right?
Okay.
It wasn't until 1983 when a snake god worshipping British man who hated nerds by the name of Alan Moore decided. It was during the, what did they call it? In comics, they call it something like the Great British Takeover. All these Brits came over and they turned like these know-nothing comic book series into like the greatest things that are ever written. Well, in 1983, Alan Moore took over Swamp Thing. He introduced the Green. He introduced that Alec Holland, who Swamp Thing was, actually died. And
Okay.
Swamp Thing is the consciousness of a man as a champion of the Green. Now, I don't really know much about Swamp Thing lore to say if the red, which is like animals, and the rot, which is like decay, was around when he was doing this stuff. But all the things that everybody likes about Swamp Thing, Dr. Arcane, that's all because of Alan Moore. And this show pisses all that away.
All the good stuff that made people go like,
you like
"Ooh,
about
Swamp Thing."
Swamp Thing are gone. And it's not like it would be that hard for a child to understand what the Green is. It's like all plants talk together through the Green. The end. There, you just do that.
It's very confusing to kind of think of, like, especially if you know, even if it's like the briefest not really history, but the briefest explanation of who Swamp Thing is in the comics, it's very hard to make the connection on why they thought this would be the best character to try to make a Reagan show off of and sell shit.
Well,
from.
it makes sense with Toxic Crusaders. They were very popular. Well, I don't want to say popular. They didn't do very well either.
They had a fan. They had a Toxic Crusader had a fan base that I guess you could say those fan base might like the aesthetic of Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely a market for like, this was top 90s, top like boys like gross stuff. Let's give them gross heroes type marketing.
Yeah.
And so, like, Swamp Thing's toy line lasted way longer than the show. It had several action figure series. They had a lot going on, too. They had, like, glow-in-the-dark eyes.
They wanted to really, really sell toys.
They invested approximately $6 million into the Swamp Thing figure line, which has got to be astronomically more than what they invested into the show.
So knowing kind of the history, or because you kind of explained in the comic what Alan Moore did, but how did they piss all of that away? Like, what was the actual concept to the show?
Alec Holland. They don't mention the Green. And, like, they just kind of whittled down Arcane. I didn't expect Arcane to be, like, a menacing villain, but he's more like a shitty Cobra Commander, I guess.
Okay.
Which they could have done the rot. What I'm saying is that Alan Moore, he probably would have hated this because he hates most things that use his work to make money. Alan Moore is a very crotchety old man who hates almost every single fan he's ever made. Like, one of his most famous quotes is like, if you like Rorschach and he's your favorite character, I want to never meet you because you definitely missed the point of what Rorschach is.
Yeah.
But You could definitely make a kid show that involves the Rod and the Green, and like it's Captain Planet.
Yeah.
Don't give a hoot, don't pollute. Make Captain Planet with Swamp Thing. That's a slam dunk cartoon. This is just all 5 episodes. 1 are terribly voice acted. I cannot stress that enough. They are horrendously terrible to watch. They are not so bad that they're funny. They're just bad.
Okay.
And it's a Deke show, so obviously they're not animated well. So there's really no reason to watch them. And I guess this tangent is just, it's a real shame that they don't. Oh yeah, another thing, Swamp Thing gets his ass handed to him very badly every episode. And it sucks because it's like Swamp Thing has all these really cool powers that if you know enough about Swamp Thing, you're like, you should really easily be able to get out of every scenario. Swamp Thing can make clone bodies of himself. He can control all vegetation. Being connected to the Green, especially in the DC universe, is a huge flex. Swamp Thing is a avatar of the Green. He can take on like Superman in a one-on-one fight. Like Swamp Thing is a fucking powerhouse character. And it's just like watching him, like there's the villains that he has are Skin Man, who I don't know, he turns into a bat for some reason, but he's called Skin Man. There's Dr. Demo, because they all have like I don't want to say human forms because they don't look human, but they have Dr. Demo, who's a voodoo guy, and also he speaks in all rhymes, and his head turns into a giant snake when he gets mutated. And then you have Weed Man, who's not the hookup for weed, unfortunately. He is he shoots he basically shoots Roundup at Swamp Thing, and that hurts him because he's like vegetation, but really like a plant killer, and his mutant form is a leech. But it's like, it's so lame to watch one of the most powerful DC characters get hit with a Roundup and be like, oh my god, ah! And you're like, what the fuck, man? Are you kidding me over here?
Oh man, that's funny. I almost imagine that, you know, the evil people he is going up against is basically just a landscaping crew.
It almost kind of is. Another thing that's really weird, but it's like, you know, it's to sell it in real life.
Yeah,
definitely. But Swamp Thing has a tank, but it's made out of like roots and stuff. It's called the Bayou Blaster.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's kind of like the ones where it's like, why does Flash need a car? Why does Spider-Man need a buggy? It's like,
I got you.
So the bigwigs can sell you shit. That's why this character has this item. Like, why does Wonder Woman have a jet when she can fly? You know, it's to sell you shit. Every weird character vehicle is to sell you a thing. Never forget that. If they think that they can sell it to you, they're going to at least try.
Yep.
Although I will say I'm a big fan of glow-in-the-dark stuff, so I feel like I kind of missed out with Swamp Thing's action figure line, because they had all this glow-in-the-dark stuff. Also, one of the few toy lines that has a Vietnam vet. So
here's something that I thought, talking about the toy line, something I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't hear you mention this, but you mentioned how they spent $6 million into this toy line. I read that they did testing to see how receptive this toy line would be, and according to some tests that they ran, they said that for basically boys, between the ages of 6 and 11. This toy line, which I don't believe this for a second, was more popular than both G.I. Joe and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Bullshit. Somebody made that up. Bullshit it was. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has toys now. I can't speak for G.I. Joe, but TMNT, they still have shows. That's crazy to me. That
Yep.
like the only show that has more shows than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is probably Scooby-Doo.
Yep.
Like it's amazing how like marketable those two franchises are. It's insane, really, if you think about it.
The only thing I can think of, because hang on, let me look this up really quick. The only thing I can think of, and the only thing that would make sense, is whoever did this study, I believe, had a connection to the toy company, and they was just like, what's a way that we can make money? I know, let's lie about how popular these toys are.
I thought you were just gonna leave it at that. Hey, how can we make this seem like it's popular? We could lie. Ooh, I like that idea.
So what's the most popular toys? Because you gotta think, this is 1990.
Yeah.
This is peak TMNT.
This is peak action figure bullshit.
Yes.
Like we have yet to come to a time where action figure bullshit is this in your face and aggressive. Are you kidding me? There's like taking for example Gargoyles, that television show. There were like 10 Goliaths alone. So it's like
yes.
Like you'd be like, "Hey, yeah, what action figures you got?" Well, I got Goliath. Oh, which one? You'd have this. I got action submarine. What the fuck, Goliath with glow in the dark feet or something.
Yes.
And that might sound crazy, but I'm probably pretty close to at least one of them.
No, you are 100% right. It's funny to get a little sidetracked. I was hanging out with one of my nieces here recently, and I've got a big old box of toys that I got from my parents' house.
Right.
And my niece, who was 5, she was going through the whole box, pulling out all the toys, and she kept saying like, who's this? She was like, is this Iron Man? And I'm like, no, that's Batman. He just came with like an Iron Man style armor set. And she's like, okay, who's this? I'm like, that's another Batman, but this one you just took his mantle off. She pulled out like 20 different Batmans, all completely different.
Definitely.
And then she made it to the section of all the Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I do not believe for a second that any test was done to prove that this toy line for Swamp Thing was going to be better than G.I. Joe or TMNT.
Yeah.
Not for a second. I don't care how much their eyes glow in the dark. It's not
Still
beating
cool
those
feature.
two. It's not beating those two. Okay. I'm pretty sure at this point G.I. Joe probably had a whole arc about nighttime warfare, and everybody probably glue in the dark at that point.
I do not. One other thing before we go on is for a very long time, if you wanted to watch Swamp Thing for whatever reason, the only Swamp Thing episode available on VHS is The Unmen Unleashed, which is episode 1. It was released by Kenner in 1992 as a direct tie-in with the action figure line.
Interesting.
So it's like this was strongly to sell toys. Like they were just like, do you want to know what the story is behind these toys without reading the back because you're a dumb kid who doesn't know how to read yet, watch this cartoon. It's like, we've covered a lot of these shows, but I've never seen one so blatantly try so hard to just sell you figures rather than making like a good show.
Yeah.
Because this is something else. And it's especially because Swamp Thing I feel like is more popular now because I never got a chance to watch that series, the live action series. Apparently it was due to some sort of tax break not going through. That's why it got canceled, not because of the quality of the show. Because people loved it. They were like, but it like the first episode aired and then like right after it aired, it got canceled. So people were trying to figure out why. But it's a tax break.
Yay.
Which is what Warner Brothers and Discovery are doing now with everything DC and everything related. They're like, we should cut it so we can get a tax break. So the video will never see the light of day.
Must be a pretty big tax break they'll get in.
The guy in charge of it is some sort of bean counter dude who I don't remember his name, but he has been tasked with saving the company and the merger about, I think it's about $5 billion. So he's just chopping everything. Because right now, Warner Brothers only has enough money to distribute 2 movies this year. They don't even have enough money to market them. So Aquaman 2 and I think some other movie are just going to hit theaters with no advertising whatsoever. Yeah, they're hurting.
You have only 2 movies to release.
The other one's Black Adam. That's the other one. Black Adam and Aquaman 2.
Look, I'm pretty sure Black Adam has had enough hype that Black Adam will be probably a success. I believe that out of all the DC EU movies, Black Adam probably stands a chance for being one of the better ones, hopefully.
Yeah. The bar's low.
It is very low. And, that it's not good when out of the 2 movies that you can only release, one of them is Aquaman 2.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. Yeah.
But Joel, I believe it's time to go to your new reoccurring segment. Reviews that are in the green and reviews that are just mean.
All right. So, Andrew, I could only find one review.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
For this cartoon, and it's a 10 out of 10.
Of course it is. Too many people thought this show was fun for me to take this seriously. I'm like, you guys, I think there's something like lead in the water or something. There's no way anyone had fun watching this, even nostalgically. I don't believe, but I mean, I guess they're out there. Hit me with it.
So this is a 10 out of 10 titled Swamp Thing on a Swamp.
Okay.
This was all the way back in 2006, Andrew. So this one has settled. This one has spread its roots out, and it's not going anywhere soon. You'll be the main course, and your friend will be dessert. Skin Man's scene, where he first comes out of the transducer, trademarked by DC, is the best thing ever. This pilot episode cures depression. Best use of a guitar solo ever. This is my favorite possession ever. If anyone has a Swamp Thing toy, I will buy it. Swamp Thing, banana. You make my heart sing. Arcane is bad, so come on, fight for right. We need you. Weed Killer has the best death scene in cinema history, and Jazz Hands, click, 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 click. Buy this show and watch it with your friends, and you'll never frown again. It is that fun. You can't mutate a mutant. and that is it.
That was a fever dream. What was that?
So a
Was
lot
that
of
a
the
giant run-on sentence?
more or less, a lot of the randomness. I guess I should have told you quote on end quote. He's quoting some lines from what. So basically, he actually quotes actual lines from the pilot episode, and then also mixes in parts of the theme song
Okay.
on it, and it is very confusing.
You know what? That guy would like that show because just like his review, Swamp Thing is a fucking mess. Just like
I
that
think
writing.
I think this guy might just have ADHD.
Maybe.
And Swamp Thing, just based off of his train of thoughts whenever he's talking about this, I'm starting to think maybe he's got some ADHD or something like that.
Yeah. There's something up there.
Yeah.
For sure. But I guess any closing thoughts on Swamp Thing?
I love Swamp Thing in the comic. I mean, I think me and you, we back when they was doing the New 52 in DC, back when I actually, still read comics, I was loving Swamp Thing.
Oh yeah, Swamp Thing was great.
It was awesome. If you want some Swamp Thing, you've heard Cartoon Dumpster Dive talk about Swamp Thing. Now you need Swamp Thing in your life. Then just go buy the comics. Go buy the Alan Moore comic, read that, and just start reading Swamp Thing like that.
Yeah. If you really, the New 52 run is really good. There's a very interesting one shot run where it's like it was like a DC 5 million or something. They shoot like way into the future. And there's a Swamp Thing issue of that. That's pretty cool. Of course, the Alan Moore stuff is honestly like it's pretty groundbreaking stuff. I'm not a fan of Alan Moore, like personally. Like, who he is as a person, I find very grating at most of the time. But you have to recognize that the man is a truly one of the most talented writers in comics that we've ever seen.
You can't argue that. You might not like the man, but he has done some great works. And one last thought, just a bit of trivia. So if you're ever in trivia, Lin Win, the guy who came up with the idea of Swamp Thing, he actually said that for the longest time he didn't have a title for this creation. He basically came up with the idea of Swamp Thing, never had a title for it, and he just kept referring to the project as that Swamp Thing I'm working on.
I just thought it's like, well, what do you want to call it? Well, he's in a swamp and he's a thing.
It basically
How
was
about
that
Swamp Thing. Instead of coke, he was on weed. So he's like, I don't know, man. He's a Swamp Thing, man.
Yeah,
or he was just like, you wouldn't understand, man. It's a Swamp Thing.
It's a Swamp Thing. I like to think his boss kept coming in and being like, Lynn, what's your update on that new project? That one thing. Oh, you mean that Swamp Thing I'm working on? Yeah, what's the status on it? I'm still trying to work on a title there, boss.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
But that's my closing remarks, my one tidbit, whatever you want to call it. What about you, Andrew? You got anything?
I think it
to say?
could have been so much more, man. I think I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. When you go to Deke Entertainment, your series is kind of on a death sentence.
Yep.
From the start of just being terrible, but it could have been easily something really like, I mean, I'm not going to say meaningful, but you could have done a Captain Planet type show, talked about pollution, and you could have really had something instead of having like a 5-episode quote unquote mini series, which is just a collection of 5 terrible cartoons.
Oh yeah.
So I really do think it could have been much, much more.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that wraps up Swamp Thing.
That's it.
If you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/cartoondd. There we have a 1-tier Patreon that gets you onto the Discord and a few free stickers, or $5 for a handful of stickers, however you want to look at that. We have a Twitter handle CartoonDD. We have an Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, all Cartoon Dumpster Dive. If you'd like to send us an email, you can send that to cartoondumpsterdive@gmail.com. If you would like to make a request, you can go to cartoondumpsterdive.com. We also have a store there for shirts, if you are so inclined. And as always, and most important, we appreciate a 5-star review on the podcasting platform of your choice. It really keeps us alive. And, yeah, hopefully you don't get stuck in the swamp when you do the things you got to do this week. See ya.
See you.
If you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/cartoondumpster. Nope, not that one. Fuck.
This has been a Lughole podcast.